welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Richie and I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to my 2025 wrap up so far. We're just gonna be yapping and chatting about all the books that I've read so far in 2025. There's about 22 books that I've read so far, so here are my thoughts on them. Like I mentioned, we have 22 books in total. This is including Kindle books and books that I got from the library. In terms of genres, we've read 1 historical fiction, 2 literary fictions, 16 romance books and 3 fantasy books. Clearly I really love my romance genre. I haven't read too many other genres or any other sort of books, but I'm hoping I can kind of change it up for the next half of the year. We'll see, but let's just get right into all the books that I've read. I think we'll start off with books from my Kindle that I read this year. I think I'm going to start off with my most recent read, which was May Luna by Kelly McNeil. Now this book honestly reminded me so much of Wattpad. I talked about it in a video or a vlog I think, but it really just reminded me of like a Wattpad-esque book, but like much more refined. But basically this is like a story following Carter and Evie. Carter is like in this pop rock band that was like just emerging like in the 90s, like they were super famous, and Evie is a journalist and she actually met them when they were first kind of coming up, and she hit it off with Carter, who was a lead singer, and so they had this kind of like whirlwind romance, but things kind of pushed them apart, dealing with the rising fame of Carter's band and just like navigating that. Story is told in the point of view of Evie telling her kids the story of who she was before she had kids and got married and everything, because the persona that she puts on with her kids is like this stay-at-home quiet mom who doesn't really do anything that's like risky, but she had this whole other life where she was like a music journalist and she was traveling and she was, you know, in a relationship with a lead singer of a band. So she just hid that side of herself when she had kids, and so she's telling the story to her kids about like this life of hers and how she knew him and all of that. It's a really endearing story and I really loved reading it. Like I said, it's kind of giving Wattpad in the sense like, you know, it's giving Your Name when you read those books back in the day of like touring with One Direction or something and becoming, I don't know, Harry Styles' girlfriend or Zayn's girlfriend, and it kind of gives that vibe, but it's a really sweet story just of like the wrong timing and not being able to take the right chances at the right time, and I really enjoyed it. If you're ever like kind of craving like a Wattpad kind of fix, I think this is a book for you because it is so good. Now during the fall reading vlog I posted, I read a few books and one of them was on my Kindle, which was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and that one I really had high hopes for. I don't really know why, because I did read the second book in this like interconnected standalone series and I did not like it at all. I honestly like just wanted it for the vibes. I was really in my autumn reading era and I felt like this was going to be the perfect book to fit the vibe. It was the perfect book to fit the vibes, but honestly this book has no plot whatsoever. Like it's honestly just a fun fluffy romance. There's not really much depth to the characters, so I kind of knew that going into it because I read the second book in the series earlier this year, which we'll talk about as well, but I kind of knew that going into it. But if you're looking for like a very emotional, like beautiful kind of romance, I wouldn't really recommend this. Basically this one follows Jeannie and Logan. Jeannie has kind of inherited a cafe in this little town called Dream Harbor, and essentially she moves in, she wants a change, she doesn't want a desk job anymore, and she takes over the cafe and is kind of like nervous setting it up and everything. And we have Logan, who's a farmer in town, and basically they kind of work together because there's kind of like something happening with the cafe. Jeannie feels like someone is sabotaging her, and so they kind of like do a stakeout together and things like that, just to kind of like figure out what's happening and like who's trying to sabotage her. And they kind of get closer in that way, and honestly they got so close so quickly. I think Logan is meant to be like a grumpy farmer, but he was like barely grumpy at all. Like he was smitten from like the first sight, like first time he laid his eyes on Jeannie. And so if you're really feeling like cozy fall vibes, this is like the perfect book to pick up because it just, everything about it just gives fall vibes. And I really love the covers on the series, but I don't really think about the story that often. It's quite generic and I felt like there was a little bit of spice that didn't really need to be in there. Like it was in the most random of locations. It just felt like the author needed to like extend the story a little bit. I don't really know. And then I read Wait For It by Mariana Zapata, and now let me just tell you, now that book was everything I wanted it to be. It was such a beautiful in-depth romance, and it was the slowest of slow burns burns. Now, I've never read anything by Mariana Zapata before, but I knew she was the queen of slow burns, and you know, I just wanted to put it to the test, and guess what? She is the queen of slow burns. Like, this book was incredible. I kind of wish I had the physical book because I really enjoyed it. I think it's such a wonderful story, and like, I just loved it so much. Basically, it follows Diana and Dallas. Diana's moved into this house and she's taking care of her two nephews. She's basically become their caretaker, and so she's kind of navigating becoming like a parental figure to these two boys, and the two boys are actually so sweet and so protective of her, and it's just so endearing to read. And then her neighbor is Dallas, and he's kind of like moody and broody at the start, but then he slowly does like little things. Like, his whole love language is acts of service and like just doing little things to be there for her and the boys, and it's just so sweet to see. I took it so slow, but even while reading it, like, I felt like I was so excited when they would just make eye contact sometimes, because I was just like craving them to like have some sort of contact. But it was just such a wholesome read, and if you're looking for a really good slow burn romance, I highly recommend wait for it. Really enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to like pick up more of Mariana Zapata's books. But that was a really good introduction, because even though it was slow burn, because every interaction between the MMC and the FMC just felt so sweet, and I also just loved Dallas's relationship with the boys as well. Like, it was just an all-around wholesome read, so I really enjoyed that one. I also read the first book in the Zodiac Academy, and let me just tell you guys, I can't believe I never read this book, because I know it's like very loved, but like the concept of the whole thing is just so intriguing to me, and I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, like, I enjoyed it for what it was. It was giving a Harry Potter, Riverdale, Vampire Academy like crossover mix thing. I don't really know how to explain it. It is the most unserious plot in the history of plots, I feel like. I don't know how to even like talk about it without like just saying that it's unserious. It's meant to follow these two girls who are twins, and they are kind of like living a poor life in like the mortal world, and then they get taken into their world, which I kind of completely forgot what their world was called, but they get taken into a different world, and they actually were the heirs to these royal people in that world, but the royal people passed away. I'm really bad at explaining this plot. Essentially, they get told that they can become heirs if they complete their education in the world, like in the Zodiac Academy, and for them, they just want access to their money. They don't want to deal with becoming an heir and like dealing with the politics of the world or anything, but they keep getting bullied by people around them in Zodiac Academy and stuff. And I think it's meant to be a bully romance, but I don't really know what's happening. Like, there's just so much happening in the series. So the story is just following those two kind of navigating Zodiac Academy, kind of like harnessing their powers in the world, and it is honestly such an entertaining read. I'm not gonna lie with you. So many of the things that were talked about were really cringe. Some of the dialogue is like so cringe. It was so entertaining. Like, if you're looking for something that's like really entertaining, unserious, but still fantasy, this is the book for you. Like, it's just such a silly read in my opinion, but I would definitely pick up the rest of the books and see how it goes. I feel like people love this series, and I can kind of see why. Like, I feel like it grows on you because it's unserious. That's like literally the main word of this book, I feel. I think that's like all the books that I read like mainly on my Kindle, so let's move on to some library books because I obviously don't have them with me either. One of the first books that I read this year was The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, which is the second book in the Dream Harbor Interconnected series, and I just talked about the first one, but the second one, I really did not like this one. It was honestly like, it was so cringe in my opinion. This one follows Hazel and Noah. Hazel runs the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore in the Dream Harbor town, and Noah is, I don't know what, he's like not a fisherman, but like he does like fishing excursions for tourists and stuff, something like that. But he is known to be a bit of a playboy in the town ever since he like moved into the town. Like, he's been a bit of a playboy with like tourists and stuff, and she is meant to be like this goody two shoes who doesn't do anything crazy. And as her 30th birthday is approaching, she notices that someone is like leaving these kind of scavenger hunt kind of like notes and kind of ruining the books in her bookstore because they're leaving notes or like, I don't know, folding pages and stuff like that. And so she ends up recruiting Noah to help her like figure out who's behind the scavenger hunt and all of that. And so while that's happening, they like form a romance and stuff, and she kind of like steps out of her comfort zone and does like some fun things with him. And I think the premise of it is kind of sweet, like coming out of your shell and like especially when you're kind of like nearing a birthday of an age that you're a bit scared of. Like I kind of understand like she wants to try something new, but I really didn't love her character. Sometimes FMCs can be really annoying if they like really focus on one aspect of their personality and then like make that their entire personality, if that makes sense. Like she was just like, oh, I'm too goody two shoes for this, and I'm like, I'm too old for you, and I don't know, I just like, I didn't like it. I didn't like that's all that she would talk about, and I felt like here is Noah kind of like bearing his soul to you, although like it all happened quick, but I feel like in this series all the romances happen really quickly, but he has been into her from like the start, and you can kind of see snippets of it when you read the first book. And I don't know, like I just felt like he was bearing his soul to you and you're still questioning whether he's into you and stuff. I feel like it's not even miscommunication at that point, it's just she's just not understanding what's being put on the table. It's not even miscommunication, but like the FMC or the MMC just like refuse to acknowledge it, even though like someone's outrightly saying like, I'm into you. I don't know why, like that's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. Like miscommunication is one thing because there's actually a reason for the miscommunication, or like at least something is being miscommunicated, but if someone's like telling you straight up, I'm into you, and the FMC or like the MMC is not picking it up, I'm just like, I can't save you, like this book cannot be saved. I don't know, I just didn't really like it. That's pretty much the end of it. It was like a very lackluster book in my opinion. So that was another book that I got from the library. And then the other one is a memoir that I read, which is by Ina Garten, which is Be Ready When the Luck Happens. Now this one I just wanted to read because I've heard so much about Ina Garten and I wanted to read her memoir. Plain and simple as that, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so cool to see how many different lives she has lived, and even her husband, like I feel like every time he was introduced he was working a different job. It's like something cool, but it was like a different job every time, and I thought it was really inspiring, honestly, like just kind of going for what you wanted and not taking no for an answer rather than just waiting and not trying, essentially. So I really loved the concept of it, and I loved seeing like her story from where she started, from like working in the government to becoming who she is today. So I really enjoyed that. And then I read The Gay Best Friend. Now this one was a bit of a random read. I found it at the library and I thought it sounded kind of interesting. This one follows Dominic, who is the best man but also the maid of honor for his two best friends who are getting married, and he's kind of been put in charge of planning the bachelor party and then also the bachelorette. And essentially he just feels like he's being torn in two different places. He's also coming fresh out of a breakup, so it's like a lot of emotions for him, trying to plan two bachelor parties and then also kind of dealing with the breakout and just like figuring out who he is, essentially. And he talks a lot about how he just feels like he has to be two different people because of the two different friend groups. Like one time with the girls at the bachelorette party, he feels like he has to be like the token gay best friend, whereas with the boys at the bachelor party, because all of the grooms, like all the groomsmen are like kind of like frat boys, so he feels like he has to put on that kind of persona, and he doesn't like really know who he is at his core, like because he just gets torn between the two. So a lot of chaos ensues between the both of them. I found it kind of interesting. It was really addicting to read, but I felt like none of the characters were likable. No one was likable, not even Dominic. I feel like he also made some very interesting choices throughout the thing, and I really didn't like how the story ended in terms of like who his love interest was, because I just feel like it just didn't really make sense in terms of the growth that he was meant to have from the start to the end of the book, if that makes sense. If you've read it, you probably know what I'm talking about. But it is a very fun, quick, entertaining, addicting read. I'm not gonna lie, I think I finished it in a day. Like I just wanted to like keep reading and just like figure out what was going on. There was like secrets and all these things between like the bride and the groom and the best friends, and then for that it was very entertaining. But I think, yeah, I feel like none of the characters had any character growth really, essentially, or whatever it was kind of like fully washed away by the end of it. So that was a fun book, but not my favorite. I also read Out of the Woods by Hannah Burnham Young from the library, and I'm so glad that I did because I really enjoyed this one. It followed Sarah and Caleb, and basically they've been married for about 10 years, and Sarah's starting to feel like she's just the trophy wife and she doesn't feel like she has any achievements. She doesn't really know who she is because all she's ever known is her life as being like Caleb's partner, and like they've been together since like high school, so that's all she's ever known. She decides they both need to go on this kind of like couples hiking thing. I can't really remember what it's called. It's like some sort of excursion. They're both camping and hiking and things like that, and it's meant to get couples to reconnect and be one with each other without any outside factors and stuff. And so they go on this hiking trip and like they're just working out and reconnecting and stuff. And I think it's really interesting talking about like long-term relationships, because especially if you are in a long-term relationship, relationship you grow and evolve so much as a person, and also with your partner. So when you're both like not on the same page, obviously like conflicts arise and there's a little bit of resentment, and it's kind of just about navigating that and how you can kind of come back to each other and like meet in the middle and like learn to love this like new version of each other, if that makes sense. So I really enjoyed that, and I like that it's kind of a different kind of story, because obviously you usually read an FMC and MMC who just met, or you know, childhood friends or something, you know, the typical kind of plots. But this one's a bit different because it's like a couple that have been together through so many changes in their life and have done so much together. They still need a little bit of support to come back together. So I really enjoyed this story. I thought it was really sweet, and I loved like how it all came together and how they like really worked at their relationship, because they both didn't want to give up anything. It was more so they just needed to talk and communicate. And I really liked Hannah Burnham Young's writing, so I definitely want to pick up the other book. I think it's Out on a Limb from her, and like she's got a new series coming out as well this year, so I'm very excited to read more of her work. I think that's all for my library books, so I think it's time to go through the physical books that I have. I don't have this in any sort of particular order, so I'm just gonna go from the top book down to the bottom books. So starting off with You With a View by Jessica Joyce. Now this one was one of my favorite reads from this year so far. I absolutely devoured this book. I loved it so much. This one follows Noelle and Theo, who were like childhood rivals from like high school. Noelle's grandma passes away and she's kind of really struggling. She was really close with her grandma, and she finds these old photos, posts them on TikTok, and asks if anyone knows who this man in the photo with her grandma is. And it turns out that it's none other than her high school rival Theo's grandpa. And so basically she kind of gets a little bit of closure, gets to feel more connected to her grandma, and they end up going on this road trip that Theo's grandpa Paul and her grandma were meant to go on, because they were gonna get married and elope and everything. And so they go on this road trip, and it is such an angsty, tension-filled romance. I loved it so much. I feel like it was so good. Jessica Joyce literally became one of my favorite authors because of this book and the writing. It really reminds me of Emily Henry. Like they both have a very similar writing style, but I thoroughly enjoyed her writing. It was so good, and I just like love the tension between Noelle and Theo, and just it was just such a good read. Like if you take any book from here, from this video, that you want to read, please let it be this one, because I absolutely loved it so much, and I just love Jessica Joyce. The tension in this one was top tier for me. The next one we have is Leather and Lark. Now this one is the second one in the Ruinous Love trilogy, which the first one is Butcher and Blackbird, and I loved Butcher and Blackbird, so I was very excited for this one. This one follows Lachlan and Lark. So Lark and Lachlan kind of hate each other. I don't know why, they kind of always didn't like each other. Lark is like a singer, and then Lark is like kind of serial killer on the side, like she kills some bad people as well. And then Lachlan is a contract killer. Essentially their paths kind of cross, and there's like someone kind of hunting her family down. Her family is like kind of in like the crime world, even though they like show to the world that they like sell muffins and they have like a muffin empire, but they're actually like a crime family underneath all of that. But anyway, there's someone like kind of hunting someone in her family, and also honestly I can't remember too much of this one for some reason, but he's somehow involved. But there is a fake marriage between them, like a marriage of convenience, and over time during their marriage of convenience they get to know each other and they fall in love, and that's kind of like the story. And there's obviously like the mystery element of like someone who's like tracking down her family and things like that. So I don't know, I can't really remember too much of this. I don't know why. I think I was switching a lot between audiobook and reading this one, and it was kind of just like, it was okay. It wasn't like my favorite. I think Butcher and Blackbird is still top tier for me, even though I still have a third one to read. But I just didn't really enjoy this. I feel like their relationship kind of like blossomed out of nowhere. Like I didn't really see those like scenes of them really getting to know each other, compared to like Butcher and Blackbird, where we really saw them getting to know each other. I don't know, there was just like something missing for me in this one. So yeah, the next one I have is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and I literally love this one so much. I was fully sobbing by the end of this book, especially towards the end. I just like could not control myself. It was so heartbreaking to read. This one's a historical fiction. It follows two sisters in France during the start or like middle of World War II, and it is just a heartbreaking read. I feel like I can't say anything more than that because I don't want to like give any aspect of it away, but it follows their resilience and their hard work and their determination to like do something for the people around them, especially like one of the sisters like fully sacrificed everything. It's just a powerful insight into like how women were also helping and doing their part during World War II, and I feel like you don't always see or hear those stories of women being not really necessarily on the front lines, but risking their lives to help people, and I really enjoyed this. It was a heartbreaking but very powerful, moving story, so definitely recommend if you are looking for something a little bit different, or if you're looking for a historical fiction book. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Then we have Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. This one is my first work by Cara Bastone, and I really enjoyed her writing. I loved this book so much. I thought it was such a sweet but also just heartwarming read in a way. This one follows Lenny and Miles. Lenny has just lost her best friend who passed away from cancer. Her and her best friend were obviously incredibly close. They did everything together. They lived together. They like went through so many different changes in their life together, and so she is really reeling and like not able to properly process her grief about losing her best friend. And Miles is someone who has lost a few people in his life, and he kind of like takes Lenny on board and becomes kind of like her grief expert and helps her kind of like navigate a few things, because her and her best friend actually wrote this list of things, activities, or like things to tick off like their like little bucket list, and he does them all with her, and it's just really sweet and heartwarming. I feel like initially you don't really like Miles because you can't really read him, but I like over time how close they become and how he helps her so much with what she's going through, and it's just such a sweet, endearing read of like grief and love, and how you can find yourself again after like losing the most important person in your life, which is like your best friend. And I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and I'm really excited to pick up more of Cara Bastone's work. I do want to read Ready or Not, because yeah, this was such a good book. And then we have Begborough or Steal by Sarah Adams. Now this one follows Emily and Jack. Basically they're kind of rivals. They've always been rivals since like college, and then they worked at the same school for a little bit, and then he moved away and he got engaged, and then he moves back into the town and he's not engaged anymore. They've always had this rivalry, and Emily is worried that Jack is gonna like steal the love that the town has for her and like, I don't know, kick her out or shut her out kind of thing. She's kind of just been feeling like she's not needed anymore, because everyone in her family kind of has their own thing going for them, or they have their own partners who they can lean on, and she just feels like she doesn't have anyone, and she doesn't want to burden her family because they all have like someone who's like worried about them. So she's like, there's no one for me, and she just is kind of like spiraling about that a little bit. And I thought it was like kind of sweet, but I did think Emily's character was kind of annoying a little bit. I will say that the banter and bickering in this book was top tier. I love a good bantering kind of relationship between the MMC and the FMC. This book 100% delivered on that, and I liked how Emily and Jack kind of like got closer. But I will say I really did not like the last like 100-ish pages. I think the third act breakup conflict I kind of could see coming from a mile away, and I didn't like the way it happened, so it brought my rating down a little bit because I just didn't really like that. But otherwise I did enjoy this. It's a small town fun romance. If you're looking for a fun, sweet, small town romance, definitely look up the When in Rome series. I really enjoyed it. I love the first two books, and I did enjoy this. It just fell a little bit flat for me compared to the other two, but definitely recommend if you're in the mood for a fun small town romance. The next book I have is The Fastest Way to Fall, and this book, honestly, I could not really tell you much about it. I felt like it was just like one of those romances you kind of read as a palate cleanser, but you don't really remember too much about. But this one follows Britta and Wes, and Wes is like CEO, or like he owns like this fitness app, and then Britta is like a journalist who is writing a piece about the app. But essentially they don't know who the other person is. Like Wes doesn't know she's a journalist, and she doesn't know he owns the app. They just kind of get connected because you get paired with a personal trainer on the app, and he does the personal training essentially. And then that's how they kind of meet. They talk a lot like over text and stuff, and they do connect in person like to do the personal training aspect, and they like don't really tell each other who the other person is, and so like their romance is forming, but they don't know what the other person's doing, so they're kind of hiding the secret, but like, you know, they don't know who the other person really is. Anyway, it kind of just like follows them and their story and them being together and stuff. Like I said, I don't really remember too much of it. It was like okay when I read it, I think, in the moment, but again, I think it's just like a palate cleanser romance. It wasn't like super memorable for me, but since I read it, I haven't thought about it, so that's that one. Next we have a fantasy, which is The Scarlet Princess. This is the first book in the Lachlan Feuds series. This follows Rowan, who is a princess of Lachlan, and essentially she gets caught kind of smuggling some alcohol in her neighboring country, and her cousin are like not kidnapped, sorry, they're arrested. And because they find out that she's a princess, and because she's a princess, to decide her punishment, all the neighboring like countries, like they have to like all kind of like vote on what's the best punishment or something like that. So they basically get taken to this one kind of like neutral, I don't know if it's neutral ground, but this one part of the land, and every other like neighboring country, like their powerful leaders are there that are working together to kind of figure out like what they should do with her, if they should kill her as a message to her hometown, or like, and they like have to figure out what to do. And there's like a romance blooming. Fun little story. I really enjoyed it when I read it, but I have not finished or like continued the series at all, so I definitely want to. I don't know, I have not really been in a fantasy mood. I did enjoy this while I read it. I thought it was like pretty good, and like I think I just love YA fantasy usually because it just flows so much quicker and it's like easier to understand. So I did enjoy this one, and hopefully I can continue it this year. The next book that I have is A Man Called Ove, and I'm so happy I read this one. I love Frederick Backman. Like, he's one of my favorite authors. He's probably changed my world in terms of like literary fictions because I just like love his work so much. So this one follows Ove. As you can tell, he is a grumpy old man who is kind of like in a mission to do something, and basically he gets some new neighbors and he becomes friends with them. Like, it's just kind of like following this journey of this old man as he's kind of like dealing with the grief of losing his wife, and his neighbors kind of helping him through that. And I don't know, it's a very sweet, endearing read. You will definitely pick this up at the start and be like, this is just a grumpy old man, why am I reading about him? But slowly over time he really grows on you, and he's just so sweet and caring and kind, and he just like does it all in his like grumpy little way. Like, he'll make it seem like it's like such a fuss, but he'll still jump in and help out, and it's just really sweet. And I recently actually watched the movie of this. I think it's the American movie, which is A Man Called Otto, and I loved it so much. It made me cry just as much as I did when I read the book because yeah, it was just really sweet and endearing, and I love Ove so much. So if you haven't read this already, please do. I think you will also love Ove just as much as I do. I don't know what else to say. This was one of the best books that I read so far this year. Then I have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Now this one, I was really excited to read a Abby Jimenez book after a long time because I haven't read anything by her in quite a while now, but I was really excited to read this. I heard it was really amazing. But anyway, this one follows Justin and Emma. Justin posts on Reddit because he thinks he has a curse where every woman that he dates ends up finding like the love of their life after they break up with him. And then Emma is a travel nurse who also feels the same and reaches out to him, and they end up deciding to, what if we kind of like fake date each other and hopefully the curse is broken and then we can find the love of our lives. Like I said, she's a travel nurse, so she ends up going to like where he is, and like they go on dates and stuff, and like there's a lot of like romance blooming between them, although they kind of know that there's like not like a deadline between them, but like they know that there's like an end date before they have to like break up, so they can actually figure out if this curse is real or not. But there's just so many different aspects to it. We get to see Emma's mother, who she doesn't have a really good relationship with, and we also get to see Justin's family life. Justin is about to take over his 3 siblings and become the guardian for them because some things are happening with his parents or his mom essentially, and there's just like so much going on in this book, like insane amounts of things happening for this book. And Justin was so down bad for Emma. I felt honestly a little bit bad for him while I was reading this because I just felt like Emma does not feel the same as you, or like she's not giving off the vibe that she feels the same as you, because her whole thing is like she doesn't stay in one place for too long because she's scared of like getting attached and stuff. And I really did not really love like the ending, like the 3rd act breakup and then them like kind of figuring their way back to each other. Like I don't really enjoy it. But I will say Abby Jimenez, in terms of her writing, I was so hooked on this. Like I think I finished this in a day and a bit or something like that. Like I read this so quickly. So her writing is always like top tier for me if I want like a very bingeable book. But I think the romance just like wasn't lacking because I just felt like Justin was so down bad. Like it was honestly a bit hard to see like how he was feeling for Emma when she wasn't really giving him the same, and it was a bit of a hard read in that regard. So I enjoyed it, but not like that much, and like I said, the ending kind of ruined it for me. But yeah, that was another book I read. Next we have The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. Now this is similar to The Fastest Way to Fall in terms of that I don't really remember much about this one. I feel like it was just kind of like a palate cleanser, fun read. This one follows Solange and Dean. So Solange is like part of the wedding for Dean. She overhears something with the bride, and then basically during the wedding she kind of like stands up and objects the wedding, and then he goes and talks to Solange and she tells him what she overheard with the bride, and so they kind of become friends in a way, and they end up kind of like fake dating because Solange's family comes into town and her mom kind of says a lie saying like, oh, I told people that you were dating someone, because her and Dean kind of fake date for her benefit with her family. And basically his work also wants him to be in a relationship. That's like how they like kind of connect and everything. And Dean is like sort of someone who has like mapped out his life because he has like known his mum to be kind of a bit of a flighty person who falls in love really quickly and doesn't make like the best decisions. So he's kind of like mapped out his like life to a T, whereas Solange is more of a free spirit. And then the story is just kind of like how they overcome that, considering that they're like falling in love while doing this fake dating thing. And so yeah, that's kind of like the story, but I honestly can't remember too much apart from like just those main aspects. I felt like it was fun, but it was kind of dragging a little bit. Like it was an okay read for me, so that was that one. And then we have Great Big Beautiful Life, which I love this book, guys. I don't know what everyone is saying, I don't really care what everyone is saying. This was a really good book. If you go into it thinking it's a romance with another plot going on, that's exactly what this is. I don't know how people are reading this book and saying that this is not a romance. It's not a literary fiction in any way, shape or form. There is so much like angst and tension between Hayden and Alice in this one, so I don't know what everyone is saying, but I really enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed how we got to see like two kind of stories happening at the same time in terms of Alice and Hayden's relationship developing, but also just hearing the story about Margaret and her family. I thought that was really interesting and very well done. I don't know, I just really enjoyed like the mystery aspect and like hearing like the family drama of like Margaret's family just like over the years and stuff. Like I really enjoyed that, so I'm surprised a lot of people didn't. I don't know, I really enjoyed it, and I think I really am enjoying at the moment like not really a historical aspect of it, or I guess it's like historical fiction with like stories about like, you know, old family drama like dynasties or like bands and things like that. I'm like really enjoying that at the moment, so I think this was like right up my alley, so that's another one I read. Then we have Where Time Stands Still by Ennis Perkins. Now this one was giving me the full winter vibes. This one follows Aaron and Ren. Ren has recently found out that she has a gene for early Alzheimer's, and her mum has it and her uncle had it, her grandpa had it, so she knows it's in the family. And because she knows that like her memory is going to eventually fade at an earlier age than usual, she has decided that she's just not going to have any sort of like real connections, no friends, no relationships or anything, because she just doesn't want to ever be in a situation where she's hurting the person that she loves the most because she's losing her memory and stuff. And so she just really keeps to herself. She lives a very lonely, sheltered life. She just has her dogs to keep her company essentially. And then you have Aaron, who moves back home to run his family's Christmas tree farm because his father can't do it anymore. His father has a stroke, but there was some medical negligence kind of thing, so no one really caught on that he was having a stroke, and so the damage the stroke has done has like impaired him. He is at home dealing with the farm, and basically him and Ren cross paths initially like a few months ago, and then you get to see them reconnect because she becomes the lawyer for his dad's medical negligence or medical malpractice suit. It's a really sweet and endearing story. I really loved like the representation in this, and I also recently found out that Ennis Perkins is actually a medical student. I don't know if she is still a student. When she wrote this, she was a medical student, so I think it's incredible seeing her be a medical student and also writing stories like this with like the medical undertones, because these are things like I would have never thought about or like never even knew. And it was a very sweet, wholesome read. I really loved the way that Aaron's family like stood by and made Ren feel like part of the family, even though she was just sort of there for like helping them with the suit and stuff. I don't know, I really enjoyed this one, and if you want a very emotional romance, this is 100% the book I would recommend. Pretty sure it's also on Kindle Unlimited if you want to read it on Kindle. The next book that I have here is Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. Now this is the second book in the Magnolia Parks universe. Essentially this follows Daisy Hates. As you can tell, it's the same timeline as the first Magnolia Parks book, so this one just kind of follows Daisy Hates' kind of perspective, and her life is a little bit different. Her brother is like in the mafia, and so I don't know, it was really nice to see all the characters all together at the same place. I thought it was interesting. I think I liked Magnolia Parks book a lot better than the Daisy Hates perspective, because I feel like obviously when you're in Daisy Hates perspective, you can see like how she feels about Magnolia and stuff. I don't really know how to explain this, but like there's just like so much happening in this story and stuff. She has a relationship with one of the characters and she's just so kind of in her head. Like this one is like the story between like Daisy and Christian. Christian used to have something for Magnolia back in the day and he's kind of like still a little bit salty about it. He's always like talking about how he still loves Magnolia, and him and Daisy are like becoming closer. They fall in love and she notices like a reaction that he has about Magnolia for something. I can't exactly remember now, but like initially that just sends her on a downward spiral and she fully self-sabotages. Like that was really hard to read, but I do love the way that Jessa Hastings writes complex characters. Everyone is like multifaceted, so it's really interesting to see like the characters that she writes, because they all are so complicated and they're so trauma bonded to each other. It's insane. So I don't know what else to say, but if you love obviously Magnolia Parks, you would have already read this, but I'm a little bit late to the game, so I'm just picking up the rest of the series now. And then the last book that I have for my 2025 wrap up for the past 6 months, I guess, is Divine Rivals. This one is a historical kind of fantasy. This one follows Iris and Roman. They're both kind of rivals at this newspaper that they work out that Iris's brother has gone off to fight at the war because there's a war happening in their world, and he has just like not corresponded with her for a very, very long time, and she just keeps kind of writing him letters. And then the magical typewriter actually sends the letters to someone else, which is Roman, and they kind of like send letters back and forth. Roman picks up that it's actually Iris, but she doesn't know that she was writing the letters to Roman, and then she goes off to become like a war correspondent and he kind of joins her, and so they have a very sweet relationship and story. But I felt like it happened so quickly and I felt like the magic system was a bit lackluster, but I did really love the letters that they wrote to each other. They were very, very sweet. I really did enjoy that aspect, but I don't think I'll pick up the next book in this duology. I didn't feel like the mystery of it was that interesting and the ending was a bit shocking, but I feel like it wasn't very crazy fantasy, and I feel like, I don't know, it was a little bit lackluster compared to the hype that I've seen about this series book in general, just about like the love and stuff. I feel like things happen really quickly considering like they were so young. So I don't know, I think I enjoyed it, but it was okay. It wasn't like my favorite read ever. That's the last book that I have to talk about. I feel like I've been talking for so long, but thank you so much for watching this wrap up of all the books I've read so far this year. I'll probably do a similar one at the end of the year for like the past 6 months from like June to December or something. I don't really know, but thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, make sure you do. Click the bell icon so you get notified whenever I post a video. And I think that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!